You've been thinking about starting something for weeks, maybe months. A project, a goal, a change you know you need to make. And then one day you finally feel ready. The motivation is there, the clarity is there. You can almost see it happening. And then you sit down to actually begin. And something shifts. The energy disappears, the resistance shows up, and suddenly your brain finds 17 other things that feel more urgent, more comfortable, more important than the thing you actually wanted to do. You don't understand it. You wanted this. So why does starting feel like the hardest part of something you genuinely care about? This is one of the most misunderstood experiences in psychology, and almost nobody explains it correctly. Because most people assume the problem is laziness or discipline, or not wanting it badly enough. That's not what's happening. The first thing to understand is that motivation doesn't work the way most people think it does. Most people treat motivation like a fuel tank. They wait until it's full before they move. But motivation is not what starts action. In most cases, action is what creates motivation. The feeling of wanting to do something comes after you begin, not before. So when you sit down and the motivation disappears, you're not broken. You're just waiting for a feeling that was never going to arrive on schedule. The second thing is what psychologists call activation energy. Every task has a threshold, a certain amount of mental and emotional energy required just to begin. And for some people, especially people who think deeply or hold high standards for themselves, that threshold is extraordinarily high. Because beginning means it becomes real. And once it's real, it can fail. Once it's real, it can be judged. Once it's real, the version in your head, the perfect version that's been living there safely for weeks or months, has to compete with the version that actually exists in the world. And your brain, which has been protecting that perfect version, resists the transition, not because you don't care about the goal, but because you care about it too much to risk it being imperfect. The third thing is something called the identity gap. When you're about to start something new, you're standing at the edge of becoming a different version of yourself. Someone who actually does this thing, not just thinks about it. And that transition, even when it's a positive one, creates psychological friction. Because your brain is deeply attached to the version of you that already exists. It knows that person. It trusts that person. It has built an entire identity around that person. The new version is unknown. And the unknown, even when it's better, feels dangerous. So your brain creates resistance right at the moment of beginning, not to sabotage you, but to protect the self it already knows. The fourth thing is that starting forces you to confront the distance between where you are and where you want to be. As long as the goal lives in your head, it exists in a kind of comfortable potential. You haven't failed yet. You haven't had to measure the gap between your vision and your current ability. But the moment you begin, that gap becomes visible. And for a lot of people, that visibility is the most uncomfortable part of the entire process. Not the work itself, but having to face clearly how far you actually have to go. Here's what none of this means. It doesn't mean you're not ready. It doesn't mean you don't want it. It doesn't mean you're going to fail. It means your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Protect you from uncertainty, from exposure, from the risk of trying and falling short. The problem is that the life you actually want is on the other side of exactly that risk. And there's no version of this where you get to skip the beginning. So ask yourself this. Is the thing you've been putting off actually too hard? Or have you just been waiting for a feeling of readiness that was never going to come?